Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So last weekend on Sunday I decided I was going to have a play with some plaster of Paris and some of my silicone rubber moulds. Now the original intention was to film a small piece of me playing around with it to drop into my vlog, which went live last night if you're watching this on Thursday as it's been uploaded. I eventually ended up filming more than 20 minutes worth, and there was too much footage to drop into the vlog. It would have just extended it to almost an hour, which would have been just crazy. So instead, what I've decided to do is to create a separate video of me playing around with that plaster of Paris, and that's what you're going to see now. So the next piece of film you see is recorded on Sunday afternoon, and then I'll jump again to the end bit where it was me saying, you know, how much fun, showing you what I'd created, and then it'll cut and then you'll see me again back down here in the dining room. I hope that makes sense. It's about 10:30 and we're back from our walk. He's off again. Let's just move the camera then. Try not to wobble too much. There we go. So it's, like I said, just gone 10:30, and I thought this morning before lunch, got a couple of hours before I want to start doing lunch or anything like that. He's had his breakfast, I've had mine, so we've got a good couple of hour clear run where we're not going to be disturbed, hopefully, because it's Sunday, so there's going to be no knocks on the door from the postman or anything like that, so hopefully. So what I thought I would do today is play with some plaster of Paris. I have this bag of plaster of Paris that I got from IndigoBlu, and I've got quite a few silicone rubber moulds, and I thought that would have a play at mixing the plaster of Paris with some pigment powders to see whether or not we can get the plaster of Paris to go kind of pearlized, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a bit of an experimentation. So I have a selection of silicone moulds. I have my bag of plaster of Paris. Now it says mix 2 parts plaster to 1 part water. Well, for this, I'm going to ignore that, that kind of ingredient mix, because plaster of Paris will set regardless of how much water you put in. If you leave it long enough, it will set. That's the thing with plaster of Paris. And the thinner the mixture, the more detail you will get. So, I mean, obviously you have to be reasonable. You need enough plaster of Paris in there to make sure that you've got enough to create a solid shape. That's obvious. So you can't mix like a tiny bit of plaster and loads of water, because all you're going to end up is with milk. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I've got a sundae spoon here, like an ice cream sundae spoon. So I'm going to do like a couple, let's just get this in shot. And I've got some paper cups. Now the reason I've got the paper cups is because I can squeeze them and create a funnel, a bit like the jug that I've got water in. So I'm going to mix inside the cups. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 heaped teaspoons, because that's pretty much the size of this. Oh, good, he says knocking stuff over. Where's my cloth? There we go. Luckily, I haven't made too much of a mess over this side, and it's out of shot, so thank goodness you didn't see that. Paint pot water, not a good thing to knock over. But believe it or not, this is a regular occurrence for me. I often knock my paint pot water over, and you should see the state of my carpet. Or not, as the case may be. I'm thankful that you can't. So let's just move some of these moulds to one side. So the cup is probably about a quarter filled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some water in there and just gently stir it in, and you can see the bubbles as it starts to soak. And I'm creating like a little bit of a paste. So that might be, I think need a little bit more in. So let's just add in another spoonful, and I think actually that should do it. I should have mentioned that I got 2 Sunday spoons, one for mixing and one for spooning out. Okay, so hopefully I can't feel any lumps in the mixture. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a tub of, oh, this is just reaching down onto the floor. I should have been a bit more prepared for this. Alright, I've got a tub of, let's see what we're going to use. Coral. I have some Coral Luscious Pigment powders. And I'm not going to do this as an exact science. I'm just going to tip a load in. And I'm going to mix that in with the plaster of Paris. Now, whether this turns into some kind of pearlized plaster, I don't know. Give it a quick stir. I'm just trying to mix in the pigment. It's gone pinky. Almost like strawberry milkshake. And I think that will do for that. And then I'm going to grab, I've got a couple of floury moulds, and I'm going to pour the mixture into there. And then we'll see. Right, okay, I've still got plenty left, so I'm just going to tap. And then just gently obviously the silicone is heat resistant, and just putting the heat gun on it, all that does is just kind of breaks the surface tension a little bit. I see there's a little bit too much in there probably. And then I'm going to set these to one side. And I'm going to leave them to set. And hopefully that's still viable in there. I'm going to pour some of the plaster into these little cherub moulds that I've got. Waste not, want not. And then, just do it slowly. Probably got enough to do most of these moulds actually, just in that one cup. So there might be enough just to do one of these small faces here. Might be able to get half one out. Again, waste not, want not. But as you can see, the colour has turned pink, and there are pigment fragments that are sitting on the surface. So that does, you can mix those pigment powders that have got that mica in them. You see, I don't even have to wash that now, I can just throw that away when it dries. And all I have to do is just to wash the spoon. So it says, leave for about 25 minutes to set. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. It's now, like I said, just gone 10:30. I'm going to come back in about an hour. Well, let's just say about an hour. Okay, so it's been about half an hour. While I was waiting for these to do, I did another one. This is the skull one, but I mixed this with, what do they call it? Penny Dreadful, which is a copper coloured mica. So I mixed that in with that. Obviously, you know, some of it is showing through, but it's obviously get a muted colour. So because I used more water than what it recommends, because I wanted a more of a refined powder or a liquid, I mean the pot, as you can see in there now, has pretty much solidified almost. It's just still a little bit squishy. Because I've used more water, I am going to leave it for a little bit longer. I'm going to leave it for twice the length that it said. Now it does actually say 25 minutes, so I'm actually going to leave it for a good hour. So I've got at least another half an hour before I even attempt to even try and take any of these out yet. So time to go and put the kettle on, I think. Okay, it's been about an hour since I put them in. Now, as you can see, I have just done an experiment with one of them to see whether or not it was ready. And it isn't. Now, and I've broken out one of the cherubs too. Almost, but not quite there. So I've left the rest. I made a quick batch up of the coral again to redo that cherub. I actually did it a little bit thicker this time, a little bit less water, and then put it in, and then had a little accident pouring it. But checking these, if you touch them, you can still feel that they're warm, which means that the thermal reaction is still going on. So I think the best thing to do with these is actually leave them completely until the thermal reaction has finished and they've completely cooled down. So I'll probably come back to these later on this afternoon. I'm just going to leave them now. I'm going to go put the TV on and sit and have a cuddle with Mr. Bentley for an hour or so, and then I'll come back a bit later on in the afternoon. Or maybe even throw some laundry in. There you go. How's that? Make myself useful this afternoon. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so it's been a good couple of hours actually since the last time I put a film on and completely forgot that I'd left these sat upstairs. So time to decant, I think. So what I'll do is I'll just push very, very gently. So there we go. So that was done with the Penny Dreadful. So that had the copper in there. So actually not a lot of the mica showing through. The colour has come through. It's a nice kind of fleshy colour for the skull. So I'll put that to one side, move that one over there. You saw the flowers that I did using the coral. Again, kind of pinky pinky tone to it, but then no real sparkle to it. And again, the cherub with a hole in his head. Obviously I had a bubble, but that's fine. So the cherub again with the coral. So let's try pop out some of these faces. These are very, very flexible mould, so there we go. Very cool. There's a bit of sheen on that one, but that'll be fine. So let's just pop that over there. Try this flower. Cool, very nice, lots of lovely detail. Is any of that broken off? No, there's a little bit that hasn't come out in there, but there's nothing in the mould. So it looks like none of the actual liquid went into that bit, but that's fine. So we're missing some of the petals, but hey ho. Other flower. Try to break this one very, very gently. Oh, cool. Again, not quite gone into all of the detail, but for mixed media projects, they're pretty good. This was the other cherub that I did with not necessarily so much of the water in it this time. Ooh, you're going to come out a bit more delicate. There we go. I'll probably want cleaning up around the edges, but that's fine. Little cutie, and then the big cherub. Let's see if we can try and get this one out without breaking it. There you go. How cool. Now, of course, I did overdo it on the back, so I can clean this up just by scraping that away. But of course, we can paint these. They are made of plaster. So let's just grab my plate. So this is the plate that I have some of the Luscious pigments on. So I'll just reactivate them again with a bit of water, because you can do. Grab a brush. So this is the gold Luscious powder. Let's see if I can find there. So mixed with water and then left to dry, but you can re-energise it again, which is why I've not thrown it away. And it all comes back to life again. And then we can literally go in and paint our little cherub straight out of the mould. Of course, you can do this with any paint. With it being plaster, it's very, very absorbent, so it will just suck in any of that liquid, any of the water, leaving the pigment and the colour directly on the surface. Hee. So I didn't think the pigment powders would show any of the real mica on there. It was just an experiment just to see what would happen if it was actually used, but as you saw, it doesn't matter. It does, but don't suppose it makes any difference. You can use any kind of pigment really to colour up your plaster, but if you're going to paint it, then you get much better effects just by painting it afterwards. But that's what happens when you experiment and play. You learn how to do things and how not to do things. It's a two-way street. Oh, did we miss a bit? Pick some more of that. There. And again, I can leave that to dry. I can leave it to dry and then paint it again later. So let's just clean the brush off, because I want to try and have a go with that skull and see what it looks like with the Penny Dreadful. And the clean plate there, so I'll mix some up on there. Get a little bit of water and create some of that nice copper paint. You can make this as thick as you want. That's the beauty of using these powders. You can make a thick paste, or you can go very, very runny if you want. So love it. Looks a bit more. So if you're going to paint it, you could just leave the white. It's not as heavy as I thought it would be either. But I don't think that's anything to do with what I've mixed in with it. A bit more water. A bit more of the pigment powder. You don't normally get this kind of activity in a vlog, do you? Usually keep these for my... Do you know that's almost dry? For my YouTube videos, the project videos, or process ones. But seeing as I'm doing it, I'm doing it. What's that phrase? I've started till I'll finish. Cool. And of course you can just give it a quick blast. And there you have it. So, playing with plaster. How fun. Cool. So I've now got, I'll tell you what, let me change over to my other camera. So, well, that killed a few hours. So I've got an hour or so before Ian's due back from his weekend away in Whitby, and I've still got loads of that plaster of Paris left. So I think there's nothing stopping me from actually doing a few more casts and just leaving them to dry overnight before he gets home. How cool. Ooh, let's have a look. Just playing with that. That's that little gold cherub. Just started, maybe just add a little bit of copper to the wings. Just maybe age it a little bit. Haha, how cute. There we go. And so the reason that cut off at that point is then I started to talk about that was going to be it for the week for the vlog, and I just talked about a few vloggy things. So that's the reason why it cut off at that point. So I hope you did enjoy watching me play around with that plaster of Paris and those Luscious pigment powders. So it shows it can be done, and it doesn't necessarily affect the chemistry of the plaster, so it still does set and it's still okay. The one thing that I did find though was using the Luscious pigment powders with the water when you paint the plaster of Paris is that those Luscious powders, once dry, still become reactive again later on. So if you touch them and pick them up and you've got wet hands, or you've got oily, greasy fingers, or anything on your hands that's slightly liquidy, then all the Luscious pigment powders start to move and rub again. So perhaps not a very good idea to use those on plaster of Paris. Probably better to use acrylic paint on those. So that was basically what I found. Anyway, so if you did enjoy watching me play, give the video a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now.